Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj. I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Careers as We Age. And today I have Susan Reuter, whom I met a few months ago at a very interesting organization called SOAR 50, or maybe SOAR 55. I'll have to check that out. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Susan. So, nice to see you, Susan. I'm glad you could come in.
It's nice to see you as well.
Yeah, so we're going to talk today about your transition from your mid-years career, which I know you told me you were in special ed in the Boston public school system for many years, right?
Many years, over 30.
Yeah, and then you officially retired from the schools. So why don't you let me know what was that like when you first left the schools?
Okay. I'll back up a little bit. While I was with Boston Public Schools, it was a family environment. When I decided to retire, and it wasn't because I was burnt out or because I didn't like my job. It was because it was time, meaning without putting any thought into it, I reached a particular formula, which is age and how many years in service, and I said, okay, it's time. So I retired, and I thought I would just go with the flow, and I went for lunches and went to the health club and met various friends, and for a month...
So you didn't make any plans? You didn't have a sense of what you wanted to do next?
No, I just figured things will just happen.
Right. And this was how many years ago?
This was 3 years ago. And after several months of playing, basically, and doing some traveling as well, I woke up one day, unexpectedly, I panicked. I just said, I don't know what my purpose is anymore. And it was to a point where I had very high anxiety. And I had never felt this way before. I couldn't control the way I felt internally. So I decided...
Excuse me, let me just interrupt a moment, though. So you said you felt that you didn't know what your purpose was.
Exactly.
And was that in contrast to how you always felt when you were working in the schools?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you felt purposeful, you felt that what you were doing had meaning and all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when you were just kind of playing, going with the flow, it felt meaningless?
Yes. I mean, playing is fine. I love to play, and I love to socialize, and I have wonderful friends, but I just didn't have that other piece. So I went to workshops such as What's Next. I also went through it was a little bit more intensive than a workshop, but it had to do with meditation and anxiety levels and so forth and so on. And through all of this, I really began to understand that part of it's the process, and it wouldn't be forever, which is what everyone told me, and sometimes that was comforting, but I still didn't find my place. And then I decided to work part-time for Brookline Public Schools in early childhood. And that was a familiar environment for me because, again, it was teaching, working with children, and the next day I was fine. As time went on, I started, I guess, feeling more comfortable within myself. And I said, now I think I'm ready. I have the security, the comfort level to know that there's many, many other things I can do in life. As much as I want education, and I still want to be connected to education in some form or other, I thought I should now start doing things that I've never done before. And I am volunteering through an agency called SOAR, and through that agency I've met wonderful, wonderful people. There's a team, there's 4 of us, and we go to MCI prison, and we...
So just before you tell us about that, I want to make sure people know. So this is an organization that I think is nationwide, or it's part of the network. SOAR is the acronym. I just remembered I think it stands for Service Opportunities after retirement?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Or after reaching 50?
55.
Or 50.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So your first experience there was working with women at a prison, right?
Exactly. I wanted to do something, again, that I had never done before. Children, again, were familiar. I worked with the elderly a little bit also during my transition years. So I had never been in a prison. And I'm now working with Pat. She's the woman who's incarcerated. And basically, she's going to be you, meaning she qualified to go to Boston University, and Boston came to her. So what we were to do was to support her efforts, academically, organizationally, emotionally. And
how old a woman is Pat?
She is, I think she's 42, in that range. She's been in prison now, this is 5 years. And unfortunately, she's sentenced to life. It's a wonderful experience. And having met her and the 3 other women that I've met, and we are now friends, and we meet at least once a month.
The team from
SOAR. And they're great. So I just realized now that when you're going through this transition period, there's so many branches, so many avenues you can take, and each avenue brings you more friends, more experiences, that at this point I'm open to almost anything.
And so how do you, on the team, how do you divide up your responsibilities toward this woman?
Well, there's 4 of us, so usually 2 of us go at a time. We make 2 visits per month. And if perchance one can't go, we're familiar enough now that we, just go by ourselves. But we meet and we schedule way in advance, so we know exactly the dates that we're going, and then we mail her our schedule and make sure that suits her needs.
So how many hours a week does this take in your life, would you say?
Well, it depends. As far as the visits are a couple hours or so, and that we do twice a month. And then it depends upon what assignments we may have, whatever is requested of us. So yesterday I was on the internet for maybe 20 minutes, getting out some information. It doesn't take many hours, but it's so gratifying.
Yeah. And so then you got involved, as you said, I think, with this school in Tanzania.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about what you're doing with that?
Sure. What we did while we were there, we basically worked on the orphanage. And there were 2 orphanages, one for the younger children and one for the older children. And it was just amazing because a family who lives in Tanzania took in one child. And when they took in this one particular child who was homeless, they said, if we can do this for one, why can't we do it for others? And it's just grown.
So did you know about this before you went over there?
I knew about it through a very close friend of mine who connected with the school last year. And she wanted me to go with her, and last year I wasn't able to because I was working a full-time job. And this year, now that I have the flexibility, I was able to do that. So we're going to continue. We're going to do fundraising for the orphanage. And
what's the name of it?
It's Living Waters in Tanzania.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing yours.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
And I appreciate you coming.
My pleasure.